Welcome to 6 for 60, the show where I tell you 6 things that I love about Star Trek in honor of the 60th anniversary of the franchise. This is episode 18, and we're going to talk about, or we're going to ask the question, is the Federation a communist society? Now, I think for longtime fans of the franchise, most people are going to say no. Of course not. That's a silly statement. But it's crazy how often that continues to come up. So we're just going to go ahead and talk about it today. So, in order to talk about it, we have to start with a common definition so that you know the viewpoint I am bringing, or you need to at least understand my definition of communism. And my definition comes from Google search. And it states communism is a political and economic ideology aimed at creating a stateless society where all property, land, and factories are owned publicly or by the community rather than by individuals. It seeks to eliminate private property and social classes, ensuring wealth is distributed equally or based on individual need. So I'm just using those points made in that definition to discuss the franchise. So the first thing I would like to cover, number one, is the Federation versus Starfleet, because they're very different for the purpose of this discussion. Starfleet, as you all know, is the military scientific exploration branch or arm of the Federation. So the Federation is the totality of the community. It's all of the member planets, and it represents the society at large. Starfleet is just a small portion, it's a facet of the Federation that is used to further their goals and objectives of exploration, gaining new knowledge, meeting new people, just, all of those wonderful things. That's why we watch Star Trek. And we've mentioned it before, much like a current world military, Starfleet provides for its members. So that's why you really wouldn't see people doing too much with money or anything, because it's taken care of because you are in the service. Much like they don't, well, I know you can, in some cases you have to, if you're in the military, have to go and find your own housing. But it's also extremely common, and I believe should be the standard, that you're living on bases in military provided housing, using the commissary, getting uniforms issued. So your food, clothing, shelter, medical care, all of that is covered and provided for by the military, by Starfleet. So in all of the franchises, you really don't get a look, a good glimpse into non-Starfleet living, because that's just not the focus. You don't get to see the average Federation member going about their daily activities, because again, that's not the focus of the franchise. The franchise is all about exploration and gaining new knowledge. And so that's, the daily life of a Federation member really is not the focus. But I think we've seen a glimpse into it through various shows, enough that we can kind of understand what's going on. I'm not going to talk about any of the books because, of course, you get way deeper dive into daily Federation life, I feel like, in a lot of the books, but we're just going to stick with the TV show since that's what most people are familiar with. Okay, so going to move on to number 2, Federation ideals. That is talked about in every show. In Voyager, it's almost in every episode. You get a lot of it in DS9, about upholding the Federation ideas, those things that make them special and set them apart and that drives them in their actions. Much like if you were a Christian, you should be following the red letters in the Bible and doing the things and living the way that, Christ lived. So you're supposed to follow that Federation ideal for living in the Federation. So from that standpoint, in our definition, communism is defined as a political and economic ideology. I think that, yes, we can agree that the Federation does have a very specific political and economic ideology that we, commonly think of as those Federation ideas, where they do believe in infinite diversity and infinite combinations, and they are a post-scarcity society. So they do believe in providing for their members in a certain way. So there is a certain ideology that surrounds the Federation that motivates their actions. Okay, so from that basic standpoint, we are close. The third point, and I know I'm rambling, I'm sorry. It's been a busy week and I'm rushing. Communism is aimed at creating a stateless society. So I had to think about this one for a minute. And my first response was, yes, that is true, because the Federation doesn't promote itself per se. It's not like there's no nationalism, but then I had to stop and think, well, maybe yes, because there is that deep belief that we see expressed in all the shows, that people believe in the Federation and what it stands for. So there is that kind of pride, and they are promoting themselves as an organization. However, on the other hand, member planets still maintain their sovereignty. They don't impact their cultural activities or anything that makes them unique to themselves. So, they're not going to Andoria and saying, hey, we know that you all don't have couples, you have quads. That's how they mate, in groups of 4. And they're not rolling in and saying, hey, that's not our thing, so you all can't do that anymore. Or they're not going, I don't know, to Bejor and saying, oh, sorry, you can't have the Gratitude Festival anymore. There's no more Peldor Joy for you guys. So in that sense, and I could just have the interpretation of this criteria completely wrong, I think that it's a either or, yes or no, how you choose to look at this particular item with regards to a criteria for being a communist society. But to be any kind of a organization, you've got to have something that binds you together and some type of something that keeps you there, other than, say, economic advantage. So, let me know in the comments how you feel about that one. Let's see. Number 4, part from the definition, where all property, land, and factories are owned publicly or by the community rather than by individuals. So there's no private ownership. Well, we all know that's not true. That is not part of the Federation. The Picard family owned vineyards, and TOS, Federation citizens, own private lithium mines. In Farpoint, Beverly's buying fabric. There's talks of credits being exchanged and earned. And of course, Cisco has his family restaurant. There is a lot of private ownership in all different parts of the Federation. We've just seen just so much through almost every iteration. There is evidence of private ownership of land and means of production. So again, the fact that that exists right there is another strike. No, the Federation is not communist. So if we go then to number 5, from the definition, it seeks to eliminate private property and social classes. So no social classes. Well, again, absolutely not true in the Federation. We see there are levels in society. People do get special favors. There's mentions in DS9 of being accepted into certain schools where you have to take exams and get in. And some of it is based on merit. And just like today, some of it is based on who you know. I mean, you think about Nog, even though he was coming from a non-Federation world, but even then, just to get that opportunity, you still had to have a flag level officer to write a recommendation for you. Well, how many flag level officers are roaming around to write recommendations, for folks? And the fact that Starfleet recognizes that and honors that. So I think there is a lot of reasons that show, there are social classes. Yes, there's a lot of private property ownership. Another great example of these two things with Bashir's family. Where did Bashir's family get money to go to this non-Federation location to have his genetic makeup altered? They had to have money. And so just, again, there is money, there is private ownership of things, there's a way to earn money in the Federation. But here's the last one, number 6, equal wealth distribution. So part of the definition of communism is ensuring that wealth is distributed equally or based on individual need. So again, just because the Federation exists in a post-scarcity society, we already have seen in TOS, in DS9, just all of the shows, things are great when you're on Earth, and the further you get away from the center of the Federation, the further you get away from those major member planets, their home worlds, life gets harder and harder for folks in terms of resources and everything. So to say that the wealth of the Federation is distributed equally or based on your need, well, we already see that's not true. That is not the case. So I'm not sure what definition of communism people are working with when they want to say that the Star Trek universe and the Federation represents communism. what I see is a society that, due to technological advances and I will say increased empathy and understanding that, when we work together to do better as a society, it's better for everybody. Um, and to seek to not do harm or not to promote oneself at to the disadvantage of other members of society, that's how they're moving forward, and those are the principles that they're moving on. But it in no way prevents an individual from earning more. Let's say the Federation decides you get, I don't know what it is, 4 transporter credits a week and a 2-bedroom condo and, I don't know, let's say 100 replicator credits. But you want more than that. You want a lifestyle that exceeds what the Federation decides, each citizen should have. There is nothing that is preventing you from working for an organization to earn more or starting your own business. Bashir already always talked about his dad and all the multitude of businesses that he decided to have. Well, we can't really talk about enterprise because that was pre-Federation. But there were still, in the later series, timeline wise, not production wise, private freighters, private dilithium miners. I mean, there is so much out there that tells us, if you choose to look, that there were private entities making money, living lavish lives, and doing things that exceeded what the Federation provided. So let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. But I think it is fairly clear that the Federation does not represent a communist society. I hope that makes people feel better. Share this with your friends. Talk with your friends if you have people who don't care for Star Trek because they feel it does represent communism and that's something they don't agree with. Talk to them about it because you can be rich in the Star Trek universe if you want to. They just tried to emphasize make your money, make your wealth without doing harm to others. So that's it. Those are my thoughts this evening. I don't think I answered the question I raised in the vacation episode about who pays for stuff. I guess they're using the collective wealth to make sure that every citizen has a good quality of life and living. So, who pays for it? You all pay for it. And if you want more than is available through the collective, you work hard, you get money, and you pay for the extras yourself. That's what I think. But anyway, folks, live long and prosper, and I'll see you next week.